Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about setting goals in bite-sized chunks. And I think particularly when you don't have large amounts of experience, you don't have very experienced coaches with decades of experience telling you kind of what your potential is for something. I see a lot of people who set unrealistic goals. And for example, one of the worst I saw was a novice lifter who had hired me. And something that he had said was, well, I've decided that I'm going to compete in powerlifting and I'm going to set state records in my state, which was a very, very high population state with a lot of competitors. And I think I can do it in 5 years. Okay. And, I'm kind of like, well, what sort of weight class are you looking at? And I'm like, you do realize your state records for your class is something like a 500-pound bench press and a 750-pound deadlift. He's like, well, yeah, but with some coaching, I should be able to get there in about 4 or 5 years, right? And I'm like, well, why don't you focus on benching 225 first and getting to a 315 deadlift? Now, if where people laugh, they're like, what? Well, he wasn't there yet, right? The guy had only benched, maybe 170 pounds. Okay? He'd only benched about 170 pounds. The guy hadn't touched anything over low 200s on a deadlift so far. And he's sitting here talking about doing that and doing it in 5 years. It's like, well, get realistic. But, that's younger lifters. I'll see the same thing with more advanced lifters. I've seen people who are advanced lifters, they've been training quite a few years, who are like, I feel like, from where my squat is now, I'm going to put 150 pounds on my squat in the next 2 years. And they're an early competitor. They've done like one powerlifting meet. And they're like in the same weight class. It's like, what? Like, you think you're going to put 150 pounds on your squat in the same weight class in 2 years? Like, in order to do that, now granted they weren't super lean, so it's like you're going to have to gain a ton of muscle. I'm like, it's not going to be in 2 years, and you'll probably never put that 150 on there. And you got to be polite about it, but you have to look at it and say, even if they did, okay, they weren't a genetic freak. They're not John Hack. They were strong, but I saw someone do this. They were strong. I'm talking 500 plus squat range. Right? They're not a scrub by any means. But they're legitimately thinking that they're going to do it in that same class in 2 years. I'm like, you're going to have to gain a lot of bulks and cuts, okay? You're going to have to bulk and cut multiple times. You're going to have to gain enormous amounts of muscle, and you're going to have to be a lot leaner at that same weight. Because the same body weight they wanted to be at, I'm sitting here thinking, you're going to need to gain 20 pounds of muscle. Okay, that means if you're going to be at the same weight, you're going to have to strip off 20 pounds of fat at some point in there. Gain 20 pounds of muscle. And, let's be realistic. Gaining 20 pounds of muscle as an advanced lifter, you have to go pretty hard in the sauce. And that's okay. People do what they want to do. But the point is, people like to set these extreme goals that is so far out of their reach that they don't stop and think about, what should I be working on for the next 3 or 4 months? Okay. If you're a novice, you need to just follow the program and just get as strong as you can. You have no concept of what your potential is. You won't even be able to guesstimate it, because not only do you not know your own body and what your potential is or isn't, you don't even know what other people's potential is. In other words, you have no concept of time frames because you don't have experience around tons of it. And you have no idea of what your ultimate potential is personally. So if you're a novice, you need to just be focused on, how much weight do I need to gain this month? Can I consistently hit the programs? If you're a little more intermediate or more advanced, it really needs to be smaller jumps. You need to be thinking in terms of 10, 15, 20 pound goals on a big lift. All right, and you need to understand that if you're not gaining some weight and muscle, you may not even get those. Okay, if you're already doing heavy lifts and speed work and stuff, and you have good neuromuscular efficiency, most of your strength gains are going to come from gaining muscle tissue. Recomping your way up, you're going to recomp your way up to those next 20-pound PR? Maybe if you're blasting. Yeah, sure. That's not guaranteed either, is it? Yeah, guys who've been in the game a long time know that too. That's not even a guarantee. Otherwise, it's like, well, how much weight are you going to gain to get that next 20 pounds on the bar? You need to gain a pound or two. And for long guys are going, wait, you're saying that way. I mean, that means for that next 100 pounds, I'm going to have to gain 10 pounds. It's like, yeah, at least. Now, you can trim the extra fluff off later, but that's often the case. So that's what people aren't thinking about. They're not thinking in terms of how much body weight am I going to have to gain, whether it's fat and muscle, or lean weight and then gain or cut back down to keep the body weight down where I want it to gain that next 20, 30, 40 pounds on the lift. They're not always thinking about that, and they need to be thinking about that. And that gives you a better context for time frames. I mean, bench is very, very body weight oriented, so if you're going to look at bite-sized chunks, it's going to be, well, how much are you going to bulk? All right, you can put 25 pounds on your bench. Yeah, we shouldn't be talking about 100 pounds on your bench. You put 25 pounds on your bench. All right, you have to gain 2 to 3 pounds of body weight, maybe 5. You'll probably have to gain that. I'm not saying you can't cut a little bit off later, trim down a little. But step back and ask yourself for time frames, well, if you're telling me I probably need to gain a couple pounds of muscle weight, what's the time frame for gaining 2 pounds of muscle for you? How advanced are you? Well, you're not a novice. That might be 2 or 3 months. You're in a more advanced lifter. That might be 6 months. Again, barring special supplements. See where we're going here? That gives you a better context for those time frames. Because to get stronger, you have to gain muscle. Again, assuming you've been lifting heavy and you're practiced at maxing out. Okay. Now, granted, if you've been running a bunch of just volume work and pump work and hypertrophy training and haven't been doing this other stuff that you should have been doing, okay, sure, 25 pounds is not a big deal, but that's just learning to lift heavy. If you already know how to lift heavy, it's going to be mostly muscle gain that gets you there. All right? Well, ask yourself, how many months am I going to have to dedicate to gain that amount of muscle? And that gives you a better idea of your time frames. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.